Good afternoon, everyone. Tom and I are here today representing the Many Happy Returns team, and it was a big project. So we had over 20 senior academics, researchers, a packaging expert, that's me, and support staff working on this project over the last 3 years. And our research question over this last 3 years has been, what is required to make reusable packaging systems mainstream? So we're split over 6 work packages. So we're looking at willingness from the psychology team, sustainability assessment from the life cycle team, materials technology, socio and economic change through human geography, and language through linguistics. And very, very important to us was the stakeholders and the projects that we're working with the stakeholders. And there's some of them here. And we decided to do 2 cross-work package projects. One was looking at dairy, and we decided to choose something tough and hard. So we looked at yogurt in returnable pots. That's for another conversation. What we considered to be the easy project was looking at takeaway bowls for takeaway meals, and also cups for drinking hot drinks out of. Because we knew that we wanted to run something, and then we knew that we could have control over something like this if we did it within the university confines. So we partnered with Vital, who are a reuse as a service provider from Germany. And on the right-hand side there is Peter Anstes. He's our head of retail operations. So he runs 20 cafes across campus at the University of Sheffield, and they've been great. Fabian's really keen on engaging with academia. They've had academic papers published. Peter's very, very keen on sustainability. He wants to get rid of or reduce the amount of single-use packaging we use, so he's put a 20p charge on. He's actually increased that to a 30p charge now in our cafes. And so, wow, I didn't expect that to be so big. I'm really sorry, I forgot to bring some bowls with me. These are the bowls that we have been using. They're polypropylene with a polypropylene and thermoplastic elastomer lid. The cups are straight polypropylene with a polypropylene lid. And I don't know if you can see from that picture, but they're very robust. That's even more robust than the click lock container I use to buy salads from a corner shop. It's really quite hefty. And this is how the users use them. So these are instructions that we have at the till. You order your food or drink, and you have to ask for the container when you order your food and drink. And then there's a series of steps that you go through on an app. You scan the QR code, and once you've done that, that container is checked out to you for 2 weeks. You have an option to buy an extra week if 2 weeks isn't enough. If you don't, they have your bank details and they will charge you, and you're looking at £10 for a bowl and £4 for a cup. And what I think is really interesting here is we got to do this over a variety of venues. Although you'll hear me and Tom talk about campus, Sheffield isn't really a campus university. We're situated in a town, and we have lots of outlets dotted over that area. I'm just saying, does the laser pointer work on this? No. So on the top right there, that's the closest thing we have to a canteen on the whole of campus. You can't really see very well, but they have a very, very high footfall there. The one in the middle next to it is a nice cosy bistro. It's very nice, and you'll find a lot of staff go there. And something that we're very excited about is actually the university and the student union run separately. They run as separate businesses. So we've got a second business involved in the scheme, which is the student union, who have a takeaway only salad bar. And so really the results from this, from the operational side of things, were good, surprising and disappointing all at the same time. So the good thing you can see here is our return rate is nearly 99%. That's absolutely incredible, and people will struggle to get those return rates. That means that each bowl that goes around the system will be used on average 83 times before it's lost. There's a lot of data on here. I don't expect you to understand, read it all. the surprising was throughout the first 6 months of the scheme and beyond, we only ever marketed the scheme as for the bowls. And what actually happened is very, very quickly cup rentals took over, even though we didn't advertise it. And actually cup rentals account now for over 90% of our rentals. And then finally, the disappointing, you'll see from the top figure above me there, we've had just under 6,000 rentals in 3 years. And we've got 35,000 students and staff combined. So it is absolutely tiny. And before I hand you over to Tom to talk about the real science, I just want to leave you with this. So these are our rentals plotted over time. So you've got the number of checkouts on the y-axis, time on the x-axis. That's the first year. It's bimbling along. You can see there's seasonal variation. So it's obviously, you can see term time and vacation time. This is the second year, about the same. Can anybody guess what happened in October last year? No one? Right, we had a promotion. Yeah, so it was a hot drink in a reusable cup for £1. And that's when it absolutely skyrocketed to 500 in that 1 week. Now, okay, that was just 1 week, but actually there was a residue there. So we did actually end up increasing rentals, not by much. So the cup rentals are actually double that when people bring their own refillable cups. So that's where we are. I think people are driven by money and not much else at the moment. So Tom.
On that bombshell. So we've been using, so the Many Happy Returns team has been using this scheme for reusing containers for food and primarily drink at the university, operated by Vital as a sort of living lab for us to study reuse and to think about what's needed to make it, to enable it to become mainstream. And it's clear from the data that Sarah showed you, we're a long way from mainstream. So the Many Happy Returns project involves a wide range of disciplines. So it holds the promise of interdisciplinarity. And actually, before we started, Sarah wrote a paper, which many of us are co-authors on, entitled Many Happy Returns. And it got the IChemE, Institute of Chemical Engineers, Hutchinson Medal, which we were very pleased. We actually got a physical medal. And it was because it stimulated debate. This is a medal given out papers that stimulated debate. And I think what they were saying is that this is probably one of the first multidisciplinary papers that have been published in the journal, what is it, Sustainable Production and Consumption Production. We're on video now, so I don't actually think that was an interdisciplinary paper. It was a multidisciplinary paper, and it did what a lot of very big multidisciplinary projects slightly fall into the trap of doing. And it basically went, we have 3 teams of people which all have something to say about this topic. Let's give each of them a section in the paper which they write about, and then let's try and bring it together in the discussion. There's definitely value in doing that. But true interdisciplinarity is when you actually show almost the dependence of the disciplines, that one thing depends on another. And to me, what I want to show you in my 5 minutes now is how a paper which we're about to publish, I think has done that now. Through the Many Happy Returns project, we've delivered on the promise of interdisciplinarity. And for me, the test was, can we get the findings of all the research teams onto a single graph? And we've done it. And it's going to be if we get it published, it'll be my first paper which has a graphical abstract, because that graph is going to be the graphical abstract. So we've been really privileged to lead a team which actually has embraced the idea of interdisciplinarity. They've been really open. We've had some great meetings and debate, and it has been facilitated by the SSPP team, and we keep thanking you. But I think it is one of the things that's been wonderful is actually your genuine interest in what we've been finding out and talk to us. As the review meetings have actually been an academic discussion. It's been like those, we tell our PhD students that Vivas are fun. because they actually get to talk about their research, but actually your review meetings are similar to those PhD vivas. So yeah, I'm going to try and really quick whistle-stop tour of how 3 of the 5 work packages, not to say the other 2 work packages weren't involved and haven't come together. This is just one example of some interdisciplinary work that we've been doing. So the focus of this work is a reuse system for takeaway food and drink. So obviously for reuse system, well I say obviously, actually this is what this first piece of work tested. A reuse system only makes sense if people actually reuse the containers. So as you said, Sarah, that the bowls are really quite substantial. So they've got a lot of material in them, they're resource intensive to produce, and so they have to be reused for them to actually confer any sort of environmental benefit over a single-use alternative. And so you can model the environmental impact of systems using life cycle analysis. So our team that's been leading on the life cycle analysis do this. They talk about from cradle to grave, and that means that they take into account the energy and lots of outcomes, so water consumption, energy, global warming impact, and so on. Production and manufacturing of the container in the first place, the use phase, and then what happens to it at end of life. And you can produce figures that look like this. So there's a number of examples in the paper. This one just shows how number of uses is on the bottom. Single-use container, this is the environmental impact of using a single-use container, say 20 times. And just showing you one of the environmental impacts of global warming potential. That would be the global warming potential of using, I think the single-use container was a cardboard container. Yeah. I've got it written down. A corrugated paper box, sorry, was the single-use container. And then we compared that against reusable containers made of polypropylene at different weights. So we looked at the team looked at a number of factors that influence the environmental impact, but weight of the container is one of them. So if you've got a relatively light container, that needs to be used 13 times. If you've got a heavier container, it needs to be reused 60 times before it's actually better than using a single-use container. And so that's why, if you feel guilty, like I do sometimes, because you've forgotten your reusable cup or there isn't a reuse scheme, don't buy one. Because you've got to, unless you're actually going to use that 60 more times, buy a single-use cup and sellotape it to your arm so you never forget your single-use cup. So if you're going to have to reuse these things, say 50 times or so, things that are used often show signs of wear. So our material scientists, they sound really posh, they have a lab and everything, but what they've got in their lab is a kitchen with a load of dishwashers, and they expose these bowls to utensils. They've got a scratching machine, and they like put baked beans in them and they microwave them 50 times, and then they wash them and they go round and round these cycles. They're simulating the wear, and they produce an amazing matrix that looks like this. So they looked at exposure to a wide range of things, tea, coffee, tomato puree, so on, and then using it, this is what the bowl looks like after you've done that once, right through to 25 or 30 times. So let's be clear, these are, in many cases, worst case scenarios. Because, as we know, if you've got white Tupperware at home and you put baked beans in it and you put it in the microwave, the chance of it ever being white again is unlikely. And that's exactly what you see. But if you think about it, even the lightest container needed to be used, 13 times before it was more beneficial than a single-use container. So if you go into the Diamond Kitchen in Sheffield and you ask for your jacket potato and beans, and the server picks up a bowl from the top of the pile, we find baked beans, and we go across, it's going to look like that. And so what are you going to think? Probably won't say anything because many of you, us English people are too quiet, aren't we? You probably go, but you're going to be a bit unhappy and you're not going to go back to the Diamond Kitchen. So what our work package that I've been working on with Harriet Baird, Keelan Mead, Simon Mann, has been looking at what people are willing to do. And what we did in this study, so this is the paper that described the paradigm we use to measure the point at which people become unwilling to use things. You're like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Oh no, it's gone too far now. I can't be doing with that. But we plugged in the pictures from the material science team, these pictures, into this paradigm, and gave it to lots and lots of people, and worked out the point at which they said this bowl now has got to the point where I'm not reusing it. And you can see that basically the willingness threshold, which horrible word. I hate nominalizations. I think it's something that scientists love to do. It's just the point at which people become unwilling. But it's all over the paper because everybody else likes willingness threshold. Basically, it's 7 for baked beans, and it goes up a little bit. So if it's tea and coffee, it's 16 times. So people become unwilling to use a bowl if it's been exposed to baked beans 7 times, but it needs to be used 13 times. And so when you put all this together, you get the graph which held so much promise for me. And I don't fully understand it, and Sarah's offered to give me an entire day, she thinks it might take for me to fully understand it. But if we just pull out the important point, the lines you've seen before are the red line, which is the single-use. So it's the global warming impact, again, of single-use containers. And if you get below that line, then the environmental impact of the reuse system is better. If you're above that line, it's worse. So we need to use it more than 13 times for our 40-gram bowl to be better, have lower environmental impact than if you use it less times, it's not as good. But then if you draw the willingness threshold on here, you see that it might well be lower than the actual times it needs to be reused. And so what you're saying is that if a reuse system is to make sense and be successful, you have to get your willingness threshold above the number of times that it needs to be reused in order to make environmental sense. Now, it's not just, oh, well, that means we need to get a stick out and make our consumers use dirty bowls. Because a number of disciplines have gone into this insights, a number of disciplines can be involved in the solutions. So you might improve the materials so that they don't show signs of wear. So the new Vital Bowl, which has been developed in another project we've been doing, is not white. So perhaps we just hide these things from people. That was a bad example. I think I'm going to hand over to you, Sarah, rather than keep going on.
Yeah, but that's a useful tool to help look at how you can design the reuse system and design not just the packaging for the system, but the system itself. So we'd be looking at renewable energy and water usage, and it can help you find the hot spots and then improve that process so that your break-even point is lower. And those images were extreme heavy usage, I think, as you pointed out, with the baked beans as well. So on to engagement and policy. Something that I'm really, really proud of, which is something that our linguistics team did, led by Professor Joe Gavins, was they compiled a database of 5.5 million words of people talking about plastic. So I hate this phrase, they scraped the internet, they held focus sessions, and they specifically looked at how industry looks at plastics and talks about it, and how we as users, as consumers, talk about plastics. And they wrote a very good research paper on that, and they distilled that into a guide on how to talk about plastics, which has been very well received in industry. Earlier on in the project, Joe spoke with OPRL and worked with them to get the right phrasing for them, for the OPRL labels for reuse. So it's slightly different to the Ellen MacArthur definitions of reuse. And Joe looked into exactly how people talk about language and the actions that they use. And happy to put you in contact with Joe if you want to know more about that. And this has been one of my favourite things about the whole project, is working with the Museum of Brands. So we had the opportunity to work with their curator. If you've never been to the Museum of Brands, it's fabulous. Takes a couple of hours to go around, so it's not enormous, but if you like a bit of nostalgia, it's fabulous. We raided their collection with reuse samples. We borrowed and stole samples from our stakeholders. So in the exhibition, we do have the Häagen-Dazs stainless steel container. I think it must be the only one left in the country, so we've got to give it back at the end of the display, and some of my own collection as well. That's on display until the 15th of May, so there's still time to go there and have a look if you'd like to. And then policy. All the way through this project, we've been engaging with policy. So we've responded to the consultations around this. I need to look at my list because I've forgotten where I am. Yeah, Rachel Rothman was on an EFRA committee panel along with Mike and Mark, and we've been engaging. We've been engaging with RAP all along. So we responded to the refill and reuse consultation that RAP have just conducted, and I think something that we spent a lot of time and effort on was working with Policy Connect. They are the secretariat of the APPG, so the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Sustainable Resources, and they conducted an inquiry into refill and reuse, and that's published, that's online, and there's some very clear recommendations on what the government should do about refill and reuse going forward.
I just wanted to end by just saying what next. What next? The main thing that's what next is a European project on reuse, which is called Buddy Pack. Which is being led by IPC in France, funded by the European Commission. But we're continuing our work with Vital, so Vital are a partner there. So we're doing some cross-cultural work in France, Germany, the UK. But the really exciting thing for us is extending the work to 5 other use cases. So, containers for takeaway food is one of them, but we're also looking at a number of interesting things. One of them is business-to-business schemes for reusable packaging, so reusable packaging for meat. So how can meat producers deliver meat to cafes and restaurants? Can they do that in reusable containers? Yes, we're working with DEFRA, we're organising a workshop in the summer. I had one other person I was going to... What was the other one I was going to mention? I think we covered it. We're doing lots of things. Let's put up the pictures because we have remembered. This is all the people involved in our research. Yeah, it's been great fun. Thank you. Thank you very much.